friends, this is Joe from North Fork Ranch. Today I'll be demonstrating how to prune plums and peaches, which are very similar in their growth habits and very similar pruning technique. Both plums and peaches put out a lot more growth and usually require more pruning than other fruits like apples and pears. This is a plum. We're going to do 3 different stages of growth. This one here is actually one I grafted onto a rootstock of another plum that had died, but the rootstock still was alive. But this is typical of when you buy a bare root tree and plant it, and this is like after the first year's growth and what you should do to start shaping the tree. Basically, you want to select 4 main branches going out in 4 different directions. You could do 5 branches depending on the direction in the tree. And so I'm going to select this one for that direction, these 2 for here, and this one for this direction. And so typically you need to prune back about 1/3 of the growth that plums or peaches put on. And you would like to always prune to a bud that's going to grow in the direction you want the branch to continue growth. The reason you head the branches back is because they'll be too thin and weak and too long if you don't. They need to be able to thicken up. And then peaches and plums to an extent only fruit on the new growth they grow each year. Like this year's new growth will be where next year's fruit is produced. Now plums also have spurs that they'll set fruit on, but for peaches it's only that new growth that you can get any fruit off of. After you have selected the main branches that you're going to have grow into the limbs of the trees, then on a young new tree like this, you take off all the other branches, because you're not really trying to get any fruit to grow on the tree until it's older, because that will slow the growth of the tree and of the main framework that you want to grow. You want to make your cuts flush to the trunk, but there is, if you look really closely, there's like a little collar, which you don't want to cut off the collar right against the trunk, but then you don't want to leave very much branch past the collar, because leaving the collar intact helps it heal up. So that's basically it for your first year of pruning on a new tree. I've left 5 branches right now, which I could reduce in another year to 4, or I could just leave it in 5. But basically there's going to be limbs going out in every direction. And from here we'll move on to the next tree, which has had about 3 or 4 years of growth from this stage. This is a peach tree that's about 3 years old. And you see the framework of the branches going in the different directions. Now I'm going to remove this one because it's kind of crossing to the middle of the tree, and for light and air circulation you want to keep the middle of the tree open. Now this one I will allow some fruit set on it, though not a whole lot, but basically the new growth needs to be headed back about 1/3 in most cases. Any dead branches need to be removed too. Sometimes if it hasn't put out so much growth, you don't have to remove quite as much. Now branches that grow straight up, it's best to just totally remove those, because they'll just shade the ones that are in a more horizontal direction, which is what you want for better fruit production. Eventually on this branch I'll totally remove this one as the tree gets bigger. Otherwise this one would just be shading it out and it wouldn't be as productive later on in its growth in years to come. So basically when the tree is still young like this, you're maintaining the 4 branches going out in the 4 different directions that will become the main framework of your tree as it gets older. Okay, and now we'll move to an older peach tree. This peach tree is about 10 years old now, and so pruning it is to keep the center open, to maintain the main branches, to prune off any crowding upright growth, because you don't want to shade the limbs that are within reach that you want most of your fruit production on. This one is kind of getting shaded out and kind of low anyway. I'm going to remove it to give more room for the other limbs up here. And all of this is kind of shading the center, so I'll remove. Okay, that keeps the center of the tree open pretty well. Now I'm going to work on a ladder to top the tree. The best kind of ladder to use to prune your fruit trees is an orchard ladder. It has one brace which you can get in between the branches, a lot easier than with a, say, a painter's ladder. Plus, if there's a slope of the hill, you can adjust where you put it. Basically, you top a fruit tree at the height you want to keep it at to make it easier to pick. And this one especially, I top level with the picket fence so it doesn't block the nice view of our mountains and valley there. Now, one of the other main things of pruning, besides keeping the center of the tree open for sunlight and air, is to remove the branches that are just growing straight up, because they will just end up making your tree too tall to manage, and they'll shade out the lower, better fruit producing branches. And then you can just kind of make a straight flat top of where you want the height of the tree to be as you're topping it. And the new growth, as with the other younger trees, depending on how much growth it has and just how narrow it is, you take off about a third or less, and that still leaves that last year's new growth with a bunch of blossom buds that are going to have the fruit crop this year. If you didn't head them back at all, you'd probably have too many fruit on the branches with too much weight, which could break the branches, and also the fruit would be smaller, where you'd have a lot more seed to fruit ratio, and you'd end up even with more numbers of fruit with less volume of fruit total. These last couple of plums that you've seen are Hollywood plums. They're a red leaf plum that's very ornamental, has a beautiful pink bloom, and also bears delicious dark red plum fruit. I don't prune them quite as heavily as I do the others because they have a lot more ornamental value to them. But I still, as you can see, it's still prune it to have it open in the middle and branching out to the sides. I just leave a little bit more branches on this one for more flowers and more red leaves. Hope you enjoyed today's video on pruning peaches and plums. Soon we'll do one on apples and pears, so we hope to see you again then. Thanks for watching.